He saw somebody on his property that obviously wasn't supposed to be there, so he called me directly.
I imagine it's a tight-knit community.
Very tight.
Everybody knows everybody.
Yes. He located a truck that's parked on the railroad tracks and tried to hide their trucks among the bushes. This individual has a history on the shore, repeat wildlife violations. His truck's sitting right here, but the guy's gone. They had no way to retrieve him, so they said they left him floating out there in the ponds. I don't think they thought that far ahead. I really don't.
Disclaimer. This program features real, fully adjudicated cases investigated by Virginia Conservation Police. For privacy, individuals are referred to as suspects, and certain details have been obscured. The content reflects the officer's personal account for outreach and educational purposes, and is not a legal record or official statement of the Department of Wildlife Resources. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to Virginia True Wildlife Crime, where we talk to the conservation police officers and get the scoop behind the cases. Today we're going to head across the bay to Virginia's eastern shore to talk about waterfowl. And with us is Officer Brian Bratton. Hey.
Hello.
How are you today?
Good. How about you?
Not too bad. Had a long drive to be with us today across the bridge.
Wasn't too bad.
Wasn't too bad?
Yeah, tunnel traffic was good today.
Sounds good.
Good.
Like I said, you're on the eastern shore. It's a bit of a different world out there. Have you always been on the shore?
I have. Been there for 18 years now.
All right, so you started directly with us
Yes.
18 years ago.
Yes.
What was that kind of like, being on the shore 18 years ago as your first assignment?
Well, very different from where I grew up. I grew up in Tennessee, southeast Tennessee, so mountains, obviously a lot different than the eastern shore. So whenever I put in for this job, that's where they assigned me to. And I'd always had an interest in waterfowl. Even throughout college, I'd taken some specific waterfowl courses in college, and needless to say, not a whole lot of waterfowl in Tennessee, but whenever I got the opportunity to come out here, get into this waterfowl culture, I jumped on it, and I've been out here and loving it ever since.
Yeah, apparently never looked back. A lot of the officers here in Virginia, you have the opportunity to transfer to different areas of the state. Virginia's great in that we have mountains and shores and everything in between.
Absolutely. You
found the shore and you said, this is where my heart is, this is where I'm going to hang out.
I stuck with it and been there the whole time.
Awesome. Well, what made you want to be a conservation police officer?
I'd always had a strong interest hunting, fishing, grew up with it, had that kind of background. I personally knew a couple of the officers in Tennessee as I was growing up, so I was very familiar with their agency and their officers and what they did. And for me, it just appealed to me just tremendously, to get out there, have a chance to help protect the natural resources. And like I said, I went to college, got a degree in wildlife and fishery science. And after that, I put in for a couple different states. Virginia was the first one that sent the letter, so this is where I'm at.
Well, we lucked out.
Yeah, that's right.
Early bird gets Officer Bratton.
There you go.
So today we're going to talk about a case on the shore in your backyard. Habitual offender, but it all started off with what a lot of our cases start off with, honestly, is a phone call from a resident.
Absolutely.
A tip from somebody who cares about the natural resources, who sees something a little askew and lets us know. So why don't you start us off? Yeah,
so this is a little bit older case now. This happened back in 2016, but it all started with exactly what you said. Someone from the community, a landowner who I'd met previously, kind of formed a relationship with. He has a piece of property up there, and what this piece of property is, there's several old fish rearing ponds on this where they used to raise fish. Well, one afternoon he saw somebody on his property that obviously wasn't supposed to be there, so he called me directly. Typical as it usually is, I wasn't immediately available. I was actually preparing to head out of town for the afternoon. I was literally loading up my truck, getting ready to leave when this guy called. But he called me and told me that he located a truck that's parked on the railroad tracks. They were driven onto the railroad tracks, driven down the tracks, and trying to hide their trucks among the bushes, and then crossed the creek and went over onto his property. Then he started telling me who the truck belonged to, and as you said, this individual has a history on the shore. Repeat wildlife violations. He had a reputation, and we were very familiar with him, as was most of the people on the Eastern Shore, obviously. So
I imagine it's a tight-knit community.
Very tight.
Everybody knows everybody,
Yes.
and that's why they called you. You've already developed a relationship with this person. They know who you are.
Yeah, he had my phone number, called me directly.
I kind of imagine being on the Eastern Shore and being a notable figure in the community. You probably don't get to go many places without people knowing who you are.
Yeah, my wife learned very quickly that we couldn't go out to dinner very many places or very often without without running into somebody that either I've arrested at some point in time or I've worked with or in some way, shape, or form knew me. And they come up to the table, you'll say something to us, you'll interrupt dinner quite often, but it's part of the job.
It's part of the job. She signed up for it.
Yeah, she figured it out anyhow.
All right, so you got the call.
Mm-hmm.
They have a vehicle on their property that's not supposed to be there. Yep. Everybody kind of knows who it belongs to.
Yes. So obviously, because of who this belonged to, I changed some plans for the afternoon. Unfortunately, I was 35-40 minutes away from where this is located. So what I did is I called one of our fellow officers with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Officer Darren Dick. I called him. As luck would have it, he was about 10, maybe 15 minutes away from the location. I told him what I had. I said, hey, head there, see what you can find. I'm on my way. So about 10 minutes later, as he's approaching the location, he's about a mile away from where this suspect's car is parked at. He passes a gray sedan, coming past him, leaving the property, and he sees in the passenger seat of that, he sees a subject in green camouflage that he thought he recognized to be the suspect. At any rate, he continued on to where the vehicle was, pulled in there, and as he pulls in, he sees another individual walking down the railroad tracks back towards the vehicle. And this poor guy's soaking wet, covered in mud, looked like he had an adventure getting out of there. So
is that typical when you're waterfowl hunting? I mean, obviously you might encounter some mud, you're in waders and such, but did you expect him to look as disheveled as he did?
You're going to get a little damp and muddy, but I think this guy was a little more so because he made a little bit of an effort to try to hide this, trying to get away and hide some evidence in the woods.
Fair enough.
So I believe that contributed to the majority of it. But at any rate, he come out there and Officer Dick, contacted him, started talking with him, and started getting his story. When he's talking to him, the guy just tells us, says, I don't know. He said, this is my buddy's truck. He said, we come here hunting this afternoon, and we were back here hunting. My buddy said he thought he heard a four-wheeler or something coming by. He handed me his gun, said he had to go in the woods for a second. He said, that's the last I saw of him. We just kind of left him there. So start talking to him. So, well, where were you hunting? What do you have? Et cetera, et cetera. So, he starts laying the story out. Well, about this time, Officer Dick's still talking to him when I finally arrive on scene. I start talking with the individual as well. And at this time, he walks us down the tracks and back into the woods where he had, put their gear.
So stash their gear.
Yes. Yeah.
Hidden it in some brush or something to that effect?
He made a mild effort to hide it, not a great effort, but he did try to stash some of their gear, but he was very forthcoming with us, and he took us back there, showed it where it was. When we went back there, that's where we found 2 shotguns. Both of them were unplugged, loaded with 5 shells each, which is a violation.
So before you go further, anybody who doesn't waterfowl hunt, if you could explain plugged versus unplugged, tell me what's legal, what's not legal, and why we even have that with waterfowl hunting. What's the difference in having 5 versus 3?
Absolutely. So Legally, in order to legally hunt waterfowl in Virginia, you have to have a plug in your shotgun. And what the plug does is makes your shotgun not capable of holding more than 3 shells. So your average shotgun can hold, without a plug in it, could hold 5, some of them even up to 8 or more if they have an extended magazine. What this plug does, the plug's a removable object that you put in the magazine of the shotgun, which prevents it from holding those full 5 shells and limits it to no more than 3. And obviously the importance of that is protection from over harvesting. You only get 3 shots versus 5. As I said, both of these shotguns were unplugged and both of them were fully loaded with 5 shells in the magazine each.
Is there any historic data in reference to having 5 or an extended magazine? Do we have a lot of data or historic to where people were just seriously over harvesting our waterfowl?
I don't know about specific actual data numbers, but yes, back in the obviously back in the market gunning days, the more the better. I mean, obviously the more shells you could put in your gun, the more birds you could shoot. And that's basically around the turn of the century when the MBTA, Migratory Bird Treaty Act, was enacted. That was one of the main portions of this was, put plugs, limiting the amount of shells that you can hold in a shotgun. You'll help protect you from over harvesting birds. If you've ever been on a good day when ducks are coming in, you can see how you could get out of hand quick if you between 3 shells and 5 shells.
All right, noted. These 2 folks are at least the one suspect that we were talking to at the time. Back to talking to him. What's his story? What's he got?
So, as I said, we he come out. We walked back there. You found the shotguns. There were 3 wood ducks with him as well. Continued talking to him. We sat down. Basically told him, "Tell us what happened today. Start from the beginning." And turns out that earlier that morning they had both met up the road and were going to go hunt a pond. And they went up into Maryland and hunted a pond up in Maryland. Come to find out, the pond that they hunted in Maryland had been baited. This subject that was missing, he had baited that pond in Maryland, as well as the guy that we had there. He was aware that it was baited as well. So they had hunted that baited pond in Maryland earlier that morning. After that, they come back down into Virginia and hunted another piece of property that this fella had permission on, where they shot 3 geese at earlier that day. After that, they took the geese and everything over to our main suspect's house, dropped the geese there, got in his truck, and drove back to this area here where they were hunting at when we contacted them here. So once we get all this, we're trying. This time it's starting to get dark. We're kind of sitting there trying to figure out what are we going to do with this stuff. So got the truck here on the railroad track. I can't leave a truck sitting on the railroad track that just abandoned here. So we called, we seized his truck, had the tow truck come pick up his truck, and we towed that out of there.
The suspect that you have with you, suspect 2, the poor guy who was left holding the bag for his buddy, did he know that they didn't have permission to be on that property? Or at least did he tell us?
He never, I think he had an idea, but he basically the other guy told him, said, "It's okay, we can go hunt back here. I've got a place to hunt." So he was just kind of along for the ride.
Following along. Yeah. All right.
Whether he knew or not, I'm not for sure. But at any rate, he was definitely there. Like he told me we could go hunt here, so there they are.
All right.
So we gather up all the evidence from the scene there, and this other suspect, the suspect number 2, he's being fully cooperative with us. So his vehicle is over at our main suspect's house because they drove there and hopped in his truck. So we gave him a ride over to our main suspect's house. We're like, well, let's go see if he's home. We drive over there. It appeared that somebody was home, but I don't know. We knocked on the door. Obviously, nobody's going to answer. They don't want to talk to us, obviously, if he is home. But while we're there, this guy showed us, he said, when we killed the geese earlier, I brought them over here and put them at the base of this tree. We walk over there, look at the tree. Obviously, there's no geese there, but you can see fresh blood on the ground where they had been there earlier. So as we're walking around to the house walking around to try and knock on a side door or something, we notice a very prominent trail leading off into the marsh. We walk down that trail, through the marsh, and right around there, you come to a little opening with a tree in the middle of it, and there's the 3 geese, freshly killed geese at the base of this tree, along with 3 deer skulls that were in the process of being, dried out, European mounts.
Okay.
So obviously the suspect had been back to the house, tried to gather this evidence up and, put it, and hide it.
Stash it away
Yes.
a little bit. They're not doing a very good job at hiding stuff.
Yeah, it's
To our benefit, really, but
well, so then the issue come up, the keys to the suspect number 2's car are locked in the truck that we towed. So he calls his buddy trying to get, what's going on? And he calls him, and, the main suspect number 1, he agrees to talk to me on the phone. We're familiar with each other. We've dealt with each other, a handful of times. Pretty cordial relationship. So I talked to him, and I'm asked, tell him what we got, and obviously he denies everything. So what he's telling us, he said, he told us that suspect number 2 borrowed his truck to go hunting that afternoon. He said, I didn't know anything about it. I was up in Maryland Christmas shopping.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Fully out of state, nowhere nearby.
Yeah. And
left his poor friend out,
yeah.
hanging out to dry.
Obviously, the main reason that I had trouble believing that statement is this was November, and as a guy myself, I know that no guy starts Christmas shopping in November.
Unless he's dragged along by his wife or his girlfriend.
Exactly.
It was out of duress if it was.
Exactly. So I already had my doubts about that excuse just from experience.
Especially if you're an avid hunter. This is the time you're in the field. This is the time you're making excuses to be out in the field.
That's right.
And not at home.
That's right. Now we get this other guy back in the truck, and we end up taking him home for the night.
Well, that's kind of you.
Which it worked out. I mean, like I said, he was being fully cooperative with us, and it is actually nice. Gave us a chance to have a little bit more, continued talk with him, formed a little bit more of a rapport. And when we got back to his house that night, he agreed to. He gave us a lot of information off of his phone. Conversations that he had with the suspect in relation to planning to go hunt today, planning on baiting the pond up in Maryland. He even showed us a picture that he had taken earlier that morning on the baited pond in Maryland of the suspect standing out in the middle of the pond, in the middle of the decoy spread. So after that, we kind of fall back, me and Darren, group together, look at everything we had, start figuring out what's our next step. Based on all the information we've got at this point, it's very clear that we've got enough information where our next step was we were going to seize the main suspect's phone and get search warrants for information off of his phone. As I said, this is not the first time we've dealt with him. It's not the first time we've seized his phone or searched his phone. So a few days later, we call him up, ask him to meet with us. And he agrees to meet with us. We set up a meeting spot in a parking lot of a department store, basically.
Nice.
So myself and Officer Dick, we pull up there, and we're sitting there, and we see him, our main suspect, we see him walk out of a Chinese restaurant. He walks down sidewalk, sees our truck out there, walks over to us, and starts talking. We notice that he's wearing baggy pants, and you could tell it looks like there's not any weight in the pockets. It looks like he purposefully didn't bring his cell phone with him, which we found was a little odd because we know he has it because we just talked to him a few minutes ago. Yes.
But besides the fact that you just talked to him a few minutes ago, as you stated earlier, this is not his first rodeo.
No.
I feel like he's learning a little bit.
He is. Every time you deal with someone, they learn a little bit and change their tactics, and in turn, you've got to learn a little bit and change yours in reaction to it. At any rate, we met there, talked with him. He still fully continues to deny that it was him. He said, my buddy took my truck. I let him borrow it. He went hunting. He said it wasn't me. I was in Maryland Christmas shopping. He gave us filled out an affidavit form, said this is what happened. Like, okay, and at that. I mean, there's really nothing more than we had. So we're like, okay, we'll be in touch with you. So we break contact with him, and myself and Officer Dick get back in our vehicle, and we just drive to the end of the parking lot down, sit in the shadows, which we do quite often. So we're sitting there watching. He goes back into the Chinese restaurant, and he's only there 3 to 5 minutes, if that. He walks back out of the Chinese restaurant by himself, walks over to the department store, goes into the department store, is in the department store, again, 3 to 5 minutes. At this time, he's walking out with the female, walking with them. And we notice on his way out of the department store, it's got a big glass front display. So he's walking out, and before he exits the department store, he stops, goes over to the side to one of these large displays, like an advertisement display, and he hits it and pushes it over, turns it over, and reaches underneath it and pulls out something that, when we're looking through binoculars, it appears to be a cell phone. He pulls it out, puts the display back over, and then sticks it in his pocket. Then they continue walking out to the parking lot. So they get into a gray car, which is the same car that Officer Dick passed, where he thought he saw him. So it gets into the same car. So at this point, we pull back out, and we pull in front of their car, to get out and talk to them. Well, they make an evasive action, around us, purposely speed out around us, trying to get by us. So we pull up behind them, stop the car, walk up to him, and sure enough, now he magically has his phone with him. So we seized the phone, talked to the female, which was his girlfriend at the time. Talked to her a little bit, and get a few other pieces of information, and it is what it is at that point.
So you've got his phone now.
Yes. At this point, this is when things really slow down. Takes us a little while to get all the information off the phone.
This is the due diligence part of the case, the paperwork, honestly, kind of some of the make or break stuff. It may not be as exciting as being out in the field, but if you don't do it right and you don't dot your I's and cross your T's,
absolutely,
something could fall apart.
Absolutely. So at this point in the case, all the fun stuff's over with. We've already got this. So now we've got 75 pages of stuff off the phone, and we've got data gigabytes worth of data that we just have to go through and put into a workable format. So we do this stuff, and basically we get the corroborating evidence that we were looking for on the phone. Likewise, we found the location data that really corroborated that he was in fact in this area at this time when this occurred.
You've got a good case.
Yes.
All right, so evidence from the phone, evidence from suspect 2, you put it all together. I think you said like 75 pages of documents, of all of your paperwork. You got all your, excuse the pun, ducks in a row.
Yeah.
What are we looking at charges-wise? How are we separating it out? Because you had mentioned that he was up in Maryland in the morning, and then he was here, and then we've got our federal partners helping us out. Where does everything land? For the Virginia state charges, we ended up charging him with trespassing to hunt, instigating trespassing, which was for the other person, leading them there to trespass, and obviously trespassing on posted property, and of course 2 counts of hunting while his privileges are revoked. That's what we got in Virginia. On the federal side, for all the waterfowl violations, he was charged with hunting over bait, placement of bait, take migratory game birds with an unplugged shotgun, wanton waste for failure to retrieve the dead birds. Okay, so we already know that he was hunting on a revoked license, had lost his privileges. Did the judge extend that? He did. So we got an extended revocation on both the state and federal side. On the state side, he got an additional 5 years added to him. This extended all the way through the end of 2022. So my other question, obviously you worked with Officer Dick. Yes. How is it out on the shore working with our federal partners? How important is that relationship with U.S. Fish and Wildlife? It's extremely important, especially with waterfowl cases, because they are federally regulated. This is really does help us a lot. Being able to go straight through Fish and Wildlife Service. When we place charges, I've got a federal commission as well, but if I can work with
the local guys here. It makes it a lot more streamlined for us to, when we find violations, to streamline these charges and get them into the federal system. It's just a lot easier. But on top of that, there's only 2 of us out there on the Eastern Shore, so these federal guys are force multipliers for us. We can't let, case in point of this, I was 45 minutes away, he was 10 minutes away. You utilize your resources.
You can't beat that with a stick.
No, absolutely not.
We can't be everywhere at once, so we rely on those partnerships.
Absolutely.
And we rely on that phone call.
Absolutely.
The very beginning of this whole thing started with a phone call.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I think both for our viewers and our partners out there, we can't do our job without their help, without your help. You see something, say something, give us a call. We'll be able to get a CPO out there to investigate and hopefully wrap it up and keep it from happening again.
Yes.
On that point, I'd like to thank Officer Bratton for joining us today, driving over the bridge from the shore to visit us. And thank you for watching. If you have any suggestions or anything you want to know about when it comes to wildlife crime or what our officers do in the field, drop us a comment below. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss another episode. And we hope to see you back right here on our YouTube channel next time. Thanks so much. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you again.